welcome to the fourth round of Open Mind to see that there are a large number of my ex-colleagues and people from some other companies also who have joined us. Today is a very interesting topic for us, primarily because it is about our own business. It's about advertising agencies. We will be discussing what is the current status of advertising agencies and from an outsider's perspective, for which we have a very, very experienced person with us, Mr. Vikram Limsay.
Okay, so Turab, thank you very much for having me over, and nice to meet all of you at Tempest. And I guess there are other people also, right, from outside.
Yes.
So today's topic was decided by you people, not by me. So it was given by Turab and Abhishek. So I hope I can throw some light on it. So reimagining the advertising agency or reimagining the advertising industry, that was the topic which was given to me when I was invited to speak at a webinar organized by the Tempest advertising guys as a part of their Open Mind series, which they hold from time to time. And I thought it was a good presentation, and I'll put my comments and the slide deck on the channel for everybody to view, because those of you who are interested in the kind of new trends, the new jobs, and a lot of changes that are happening around this industry may be interested to view it. So here goes. I was told that the need for this topic, which was given by them, not by me, arose because the people in the advertising sector thought that or rather know that the industry has changed a lot over the last 20, 30, 40 years and is still probably behaving in the same manner that it behaved around 40 years back. And it seems to be fraught with some problems that need to be addressed, and they just wanted an external view from a person like me. So I hope it helps everybody. These are my views and opinions from having dealt with your industry and having been its client, and also been a part of it as a media owner perhaps. So I probably have some opinions from all directions, a 360 view on this industry. Hope you appreciate, and then we could discuss it later. Right. So the way it was told was, is there really a problem in the advertising sector, and do we really need to reimagine this sector? So before we dive into the presentation, I thought let's look at the numbers. At least the numbers look all right. It's a 75,000 crore industry, and it's growing consistently. And over the last couple of years, I'm talking Indian advertising industry, around 8, 9, 10%. Of course, over the last couple of years, the digital segment is significant, almost 40 to 45% of the total advertising sector, and that itself is growing at around 38 to 40% CAGR. So the CAGR of the sector and the CAGR of the digital segment seems to be at least pretty healthy at this slide, right? Let's look at the next slide. The Indian advertising industry, which itself is a part of the APAC segment, which is growing quite a bit in the global context, is also pretty healthy. India is emerging as the third largest advertising market of the 560 or 600 billion global advertising market. So here also, I think some good things can be taken out from this numbers, depending on how you look at it. Of course, there must be, I'm sure, a lot of things going wrong, but there are a lot of things going right as well. If we look at the whole thing in a global context, I think I would like to look at this slide in a very positive context for the advertising sector. Now, if we look at the global GDP, which is around 80 odd trillion, and the global advertising spend, which is at 560 billion, you end up with almost 0.7% of spends as a sectoral spend as a percentage of GDP. Now, if you look at it in the same context in India, you're at a 0.35% of your annual GDP, which is 2.6 trillion, which means that there is a 50% lag or a 50% headroom for the Indian sector or Indian advertising sector to grow, to catch up with the global benchmark. Now, that looks pretty healthy. But what's also more important in my view is that the global GDP is growing at a rate which is far lower than the Indian GDP. At least the stated objective of our country, which everybody is now talking about, is grow it to around 5 trillion over the next couple of years, which means 100 growth. So all this looks pretty nice actually, because your home market, which is around third in the world, growing at a decent CAGR of 8, 9, or 10%, with a significant headroom of almost 50% to catch up with the global benchmarks. And more importantly, your own home economy growing, or slated to grow at least at 100% over the next couple of years. So all this sounds at least pretty healthy for your sector. So far, I don't see any problem. So is there really then a need to reimagine? But I guess since all of you are, saying that, then probably, and a lot of friends in the advertising world say that, so probably there is. And let's try to reimagine that. And I'll try to offer a 360 view, which hopefully you'll appreciate, and we can open it up for discussion later. So let's dive right in. So how does it get manifested? At least this is what I have seen you guys talking about your own industry. Clients don't value agencies anymore like they used to do in the past, perhaps. Layoffs are happening, salaries are not increasing. Very important, quality people don't seem to be joining, or a lot of quality people are leaving the sector. And of course, competition is increasing. And overall, the profitability and the financial indices don't look pretty healthy for your sector. That's what I'm told time and again. And of course, technology and digital is kind of hitting it bad. Now, these are some of the non-quantity manifestations of the problem which friends in the advertising industry talk about from time to time, and at least and those are things let's try to address today. At least I'll try to address. But I get a feeling, are we barking at the wrong tree? Because all these points which seem to be manifested, in my view, don't really point out to probably the real problem, which could lie somewhere else, but we could look at that separately. Now, clients don't value agencies. Now, I wonder whose fault it is. It's not a sectoral fault. Probably it's an individual agency fault or something like that. We'll have to look at that. Layoffs are happening. Well, join the gang. They're happening everywhere. Salaries are not increasing. Is the value increasing? That's the point that needs to be addressed by advertising agencies. And that's very, very important, because more and more clients and the sector will be under pressure to increase its value if they want to increase salaries and the overall revenue. Quality people are not joining. Well, has the context changed in your industry? Are you still recruiting from the way you guys recruited around 30 or 40 years back? Maybe the context has changed now, so that's some thinking required over there. Competition is increasing. Well, welcome to the table. Margins are low. Probably, I have not seen many new revenue streams. I'll suggest a couple of them later in our discussion, but maybe you guys will have to go for some financial models to really look at your models. Financial models, that is. And technology and digital impacting you. Well, welcome back, again to the table. It's impacting everybody, not just your sector. So these are, I think, some of the real reasons that you guys think, but I don't know. Well, the key element that comes across when we internally discuss a lot is that why does a sector like advertising, which takes the pride and is indeed very good at branding everybody else's business, not able to brand its own sector or its own agencies? Where has it gone wrong? Or if it has gone wrong, what's really the reasons? So I will look at, there are a lot of trends that I have caught on within the advertising industry and advertising agencies. Some of them I'll discuss over there, some of them, of course, and we could have a lengthy, this whole topic could be a 2-day workshop kind of thing, but then I'll try to pack in whatever I can in the next whatever minutes that we have, right? So some of the trends that have, in my view, disrupted your sector, and probably the sector or agencies missed adjusting, in my view, are as follows. First is the non-integration in the business mix. I've always felt that, in an industry, there's a kind of a hierarchy, right? There's a corporate strategy on top, then there is a business strategy followed by a functional strategy, and then there are different functional strategies of their own. Like sales will have its own pyramid going down, Marcom will have its own pyramid, manufacturing and everything. I have a feeling that many times advertising agencies and advertising sector look beyond this pyramid and feel that a little exclusive treatment they give to themselves. I feel that could be one of the trends, and the industry needs to integrate much more with the other aspects of the business pyramid. I think a lot of knowledge of other functions very important. Like for example, branding. Very simple. Branding also has a component of pricing, for example. It also has a component of distribution and logistics. But I find many times these concepts of pricing, distribution, margins, etc., missing missed by the people in the advertising sector. I'm not talking about specific people over here. I'm talking generally. I'm sure there are a lot of good people who know everything about various aspects of the business, but generally, as an industry or as an advertising sector, it's very important for this industry to gain a lot of deep knowledge about other functions which go into preparing the product into becoming a brand, or a service from becoming into a brand. That is one of the trends I thought you should look at as a industry or as an agency. The second is the ecosystem around you has changed, but has your industry changed? This is very important. Just pointing out to a couple of things in your ecosystem. Let's say the tools, the clients, the media, the needs of the consumer all have changed. Let's take some examples. For example, tools. Even small tools like technology tools like Photoshop and digital tools that go into making of an ad or communication have completely changed. More importantly, they're accessible now. There's no accessibility problem. They're accessible to everybody. Media, there's a lot of convergence. In fact, media and entertainment at the top are merging. And I'm not talking about just the platforms like a Twitter or Facebook. I'm saying at a global level, media ownership and entertainment ownership, there's a lot of cross buying and integration happening right at top. So that's one of the things that needs to be considered. The ecosystem is changing. The clients have become very savvy about your function, about various aspects of your function, and of course the needs of the consumer. I feel that mass personalization of needs is happening today because of technology, and probably your sector is still looking at mass needs, or probably tailoring the communication to mass needs and not to mass personalized needs. That's the second trend I thought would be interesting for you guys to catch on. Third one is that your industry seems to be conventionally is a right brain industry, a very creative industry, but more and more I find a lot of left brain creeping into this industry. See, today more and more businesses operate at the cusp of technology, money, and mind. And look at your recruitment. Probably, the way you recruited in the past, these are the kind of people, the creative artists, the singers and songwriters, and those are the kind of people you recruited. But today, I don't know whether anybody would think of recruiting a psychologist in an ad agency. Would anybody look at recruiting a data scientist in an ad agency? Would anybody look at recruiting people from an investment banking domain into advertising? So a whole lot of left brain has creeped into a conventional right brain industry. So it's now not a matter of or, it's a matter of and. So since businesses operate at this cusp of money, technology, and mind, probably the industry needs to look at the old way of recruiting, and also looking at a couple of new skill sets to be brought in. That's the other trend that probably is getting missed out, and that's why some difficulties are being faced. One more trend I thought is that any of the middle industry, the aggregator industry, has transformed. Look at any industry: hotel, travel, BFSI, retail, supply chain. The middle industry is kind of, the buyer and seller is coming closer together, and the middle industry is getting eliminated. And that's happening across industry. And when I say eliminated, it's not exactly eliminated, it's getting transformed. So advertising also is a kind of a middle industry. So it is probably the time right now for you guys to look at how to transform this middle industry into something completely different, because in your case, the buyer and seller are coming close together, and the advertising agency needs to, or the industry needs to re-engineer itself to do that. And there are a lot of ideas that we could discuss in future. The other trend is, I've often seen advertising professionals at least take ownership to creativity. Now, creativity is not proprietary. It's got several hues. There is visual and performing arts creativity, but then so is there some financial creativity. There's dexterity. The guys on factory manufacturing lines are also equally creative. There's intellectual creativity everywhere. So creativity is no longer a proprietorship. It's not a function. It's a function of the mind, right? It's a talent that everybody has, not just the people who are in the creative or a nomenclatured creative industry need not be the only people who have creativity. That's what I mean. So you cannot take ownership for a human function like this. So you may have to that is one trend. And there is a lot of creativity on your client side, a lot of creativity in your entire ecosystem, and probably you need to merge your own creativity with that, or get some alignment with overall creativity, and probably that's going to help you. That's one of the trends that we need to look at. Then there's a disruption of complete revenue stream. I don't see any new revenue stream, a creative self-made revenue stream developed by your industry other than commissions or client retainer. These are the only two revenue streams which are, it's either commissions or client retainer. Is there a new skill set based revenue stream that has been developed by your industry? There are many opportunities today which are there. So probably that is one of the things. The next is your strategic leadership, the industry strategic leadership. At least the where is the industry direction? Is there anybody leading it with a firm mindset towards a growth roadmap, right? So the growth trend of 8 or 9% indicates that it's growing well, but still it's being pulled by the GDP probably. But do you match your own industry growth trends with the GDP or the average spenders or the top spenders? I would say look at the top spenders. They're growing at multiple rates, but is your industry growth rate kind of tagging along to the top spenders growth rate, or is it tagging along to the average spender growth rates? Goa Fest, Cannes, a lot of these events are held from time to time, but are they on the larger business strategy, or are they on the creative strategy? I think that's, or I'm sure there is a lot that's happening on the business strategy front, but probably a whole lot of business strategy needs to be discussed at these kind of fora. Is there a lot of advocacy and government advocacy happening right now? I saw recently news reports which weren't pretty healthy of people commenting within the government about advertising. So, there has to be a lot of engagement and advocacy over there. And finally, what is the industry's purpose? I mean, some basic concepts are required to be discussed probably at your end. And after all, 70,000 crores is not a small size of the industry, but there's probably a very urgent need by the sector to do a business strategy, not just a brand strategy, but a business strategy for the sector on the large. That's what is important, and it'll be good for all. Otherwise, everything looks to be pretty healthy. Barring catching on a couple of trends. I'm just discussing a couple of trends. I'm sure there are a lot of other trends which will be there. Let's look at some future trends that will happen, and which, of course, you guys need to be prepared for. First is more disruption. There's going to be more technology, more AI, more data. There's going to be immersive experience, predictive modeling, recommendation engines are going to be, so entire consumer insight and everything is going to be technology driven. Of course, there are a lot of software elements which will have to be looked at, and that's where key sensibilities will have to be developed. But all this means that there's more opportunity. There's a humongous opportunity available with the disruption happening. It's only whether your industry or you as an agency, are you aligned for this? That's important for you to probably consider. The next one is, are we, there are definitely going to be more spends in the advertising world, but more importantly, there are going to be faster spends and there are going to be pointed spends. So there's a lot of money to be made and attractive as an industry, but then your position in this whole sector will depend. It'll depend on your geographical position. And when I'm talking positioning over here, I'm not talking about the Al Rees, Jack Trout kind of positioning. I'm saying geographical positioning in the ecosystem where you will be financially more and more viable, because clearly people are going to spend a lot more money. It is going to be spent in a particular direction, and it is going to be spent in a particular manner. So you need to position yourself very clearly by knowing the entire emerging ecosystem of not your ecosystem, but the others' ecosystem. And that's what is a trend that you'll need to catch. The other trend that will come is that the kind of people that will be recruited in the advertising agencies and industry will be completely different. Check out some of them. I'm just kind of putting some digital visualizers, tribe psychologists, trend hackers, creative analysts, consumer data scientists, immersive reality specialists. These are, there's a whole new list of designations, job roles, job definitions, job functions, which are going to come up in the advertising agencies and advertising sector. Mm-hmm. So I think people will need to get, like I said, business now operates at the cusp of the mind and technology and money. So you'll have to, see many people coming in from these domains also, and being a very comfortable part of the advertising agency or the advertising sector, and that's going to benefit everybody, because clearly there's a lot of headroom and money to be made, right? And you'll need some good people. And if the so the context has to change. Probably this is a slide where we could spend another few seconds and discuss whether why good people are leaving or why good people are not joining. So maybe the context has changed elsewhere, so you need to align the industry context with the overall business context which is changing. In terms of content trend, idea to content, there's going to be a sea change over there. Content is getting created. So are you guys creating content, or at least are you aligning to good content that is being created? That's one of the major content trend. I write CareerTainment. It's about my own channel that I have created about just a couple of months back, and we are already at 100,000 plus viewers. So like that, a lot of content is being created everywhere, and people need to engage, and you need to align yourselves. A lot of advertising and communication is going to move from product to issue based, especially after this COVID scenario. Issue based advertising is going to be very good. I was just recently referring to in one of my other businesses where we represent Brompton Bicycles, a very, very premium folding bike brand. It's a lifestyle bike brand for the whole country. And the SARC markets. In that company, we represent a lot of international brands. I find my people over there looking at issues to align with. Now, recently there was a case in UK where the Brompton Bicycle did no communication or advertising. They just aligned with the National Health Service in providing bikes to the health staff going around during these difficult COVID times. Now, that's the issue which caught on, and it went viral and did very well for the company and the brand and led to increased production. So that's the kind of stuff, issue-based alignment, which will have to happen. I feel a lot of hard sell to soft sell will happen, and people will look at more philosophical and subliminal kind of communication, because that's my view, is that people will now be a little more disturbed with too much of hard sell. They would like to really look at issue based, what matters to them, a little softer aspects of communication. All that kind of stuff will increase. I recently wrote a paper in one of the newspapers. I think I don't remember, but I'll send that to you later. And of course, the content is going to be mass personalized. You cannot look at larger segments and addressing them. Now, in the digital era, each one of them can be addressed separately. So that's a skill that will have to be addressed or probably gained by those in the ad agencies, right? The next is, of course, so therefore, in this changing scenario, what are the stuff that you need to do? What should you do as an individual, as an agency, or as a sector? Let's spend a couple of minutes on this at this point of time. As an advertising professional, remember that first thing is, please remember that you are in an impact sector. It's a very visible impact sector. So you're very lucky and blessed that you're in a sector which can visibly impact and to a lot of people around. So it's a kind of a perpetual sector. I don't see any doomsday declaration on advertising. People will, as long as commerce is there, advertising is was happening and will happen and keep on happening. So the only thing is that there's going to be an era of measurability which comes in. So you cannot hide behind opinions. You have to move from the luxury of opinion to probably the technicality of thought. That's where the major shift is going to happen, because you can't hide anything in today's date, because it's like, that's the reason why people some of them prefer a ballot paper, not an EVM, right? Because you can't hide anything in today's date. So the tyranny of thought will be on top, and the luxury of opinion will go down. So be careful about that. So always when you're interacting with anybody, you better have your fundamental data, fundamental concepts very, very clear. Opinion will have less and less meaning now. So get on top and ahead of that one skill set that you have, right? Like any business function or the technology guys, you have to keep ahead of the curve on technology. So read up a lot. I have put a pretty decently watched video on the channel, which is, what will happen is technology driving the conventional jobs away? Probably look at that, but be ahead of the curve on technology, and define a future function for yourselves, whether it'll be in the domain of technology, whether it'll be in the domain of psychology, whether it'll be domain of financial modeling, and of course creative, and of course the conventional functions. Those kind of things are there, because no longer is it going to be silo based. Everybody is going to interact with the client. The other thing I hear a lot from you people is whether to be a free agent or be a part of a platform. Now, it's honestly a platform world, but I'm not saying being a free agent is not possible. Of course, if you're a very good free agent, you're definitely, what I mean by free agent is if you want to be an independent advertising consultant, for example, it's good. There is scope for everything in life, as they say, but it's difficult because getting business finally will get to you. So it's easy to be in a nice collaborative world, and the entire world is anyway moving to a collaborative platform. So try to be a part of a forward thinking platform, because to kind of a lone furrow is going to be tough as things go forward, because there are more and more people entering the job market and skill market, right? And the last but most important, constantly reskill. Don't stop ever. And this reskilling has to be at least 60 to 70% on technology and what's happening around that. So as an advertising professional, this is what in my view you should do. As an ad agency, I think I know business is bad, so everybody seems to be doing everything, but it's time to go back to the basics and find out your own value discipline. Very critical. What is that one thing your agency is known for? And more importantly, as a company or as an ad agency, are you setting up reskilling COEs? COE, I mean Center of Excellence. A Center of Excellence can be anything. It could be, talks like these where you're putting a mirror to yourselves, or perhaps even on technology. You have to constantly set up COEs in your business. Another point, yes, you need a business strategy for your business, a business strategy. And I don't mean a brand strategy. Again, like I mentioned in the earlier side, you need a business strategy to look for where the agency is going, because at the end of the day, the agency is a business. Yeah. And finally, of course, keep a lookout for content and issue alignment opportunities which are there around you, and probably look for a larger purpose that gives you as agency an insight into what you should be. So it's very important for an agency to even look at its own corporate strategy and business strategy, rather than, you guys are good at, all the time looking at somebody else's. But that's what happens, right? When you're busy doing somebody else's stuff, then your own stuff kind of gets ignored. And that's natural. I'm not saying that's happening by design. It's just natural. So probably these are times when you need to kind of turn your pivot and suddenly look at yourselves in terms of business and as a corporate strategy. That's very, very important for an ad agency. As a sector, a lot can be done. In fact, you need to find some contextual visionaries. I'm sure there are many in this industry who know the larger ecosystem, and they need to work on a complete 360 industry scoping and a format C colon for your sector, because that's what is happening right now. Your sector probably will change a lot, has already changed a lot, and will keep changing. So you need to completely redefine the skill set, the kind of, for example, there was this whole case, for example, at a petrol bunk, what kind of people will you recruit in the earlier days? There was a very famous case in which some major petroleum companies did the guy who was actually kind of vending petrol at the petrol station was his recruitment test was all about mathematics and calculator and all that. But then some smart person went and told him that, hey, listen, all that guy needs to do is to smile, and he needs to be good. So a lot of consumer interface kind of skills is what you should be looking at. And that's kind of changed the whole damn thing. The same thing probably is in your agency also. You now need to redefine the skill sets, because probably a newer skill sets have emerged and are appreciated by the client now. So of course the old skill sets are important, but the new skill sets need to be learned. And how is the industry preparing itself to recruit that? That's one of the main thing. Yeah? And of course, engage where it matters, and advocacy. We talked about that a little bit in past. So this in a very, very short, like I said, in a short presentation, this is what I can offer. We'll of course close by saying that you can look at it, either the world around us seems to be crashing or changing, or new stuff is getting created. I think in your industry, which is advertising agencies and advertising industry, is such an interesting sector that huge opportunities exist today for excellence, innovation, hard work, and of course that also means a huge opportunity to make money. So it's actually a pretty nice and could be a sunrise sector going forward if thought of it in a right manner, with the right business strategy and right corporate strategy, not a branding strategy alone, right? That's important. So I'll probably end this end note with a small quiz, so that we could connect on this later. Let's probably look at muddling your right and left brain Like how the Japanese koans or a kural or a Mahavakya is framed, just asking you one small thing. If there was just one thing that an agency needs to be on this focusing on, or what would that be? Will it be client, the public at large, the money, process, anything else that comes to my mind? I have my opinion. Maybe when we meet again offline, we will discuss that. But I'd love to hear from you. What is that one thing that's going to be critical for you to focus on? I hope this presentation has helped you. Turab, my friend at Tempest Advertising, is a great guy to have organized this presentation as a mirror to his own sector. I wish you all great luck in future. Thanks. Take care. And you're of course watching the other videos on the channel. So bye for now.